So we're going to start by having a look at the history of After Effects. What is After Effects? What does it do and where does it come from? Well, After Effects is a motion graphics and compositing app or application that's primarily used for creating motion graphics and visual effects. And it allows users to animate, alter and composite media and add effects, both in 2D and 3D environments. And it uses various built-in tools to do that, but you can also extend it by using third-party plugins. And if we have a look here, we see the original team that created After Effects, a small startup company. And this is a picture of them in around 1991. And from left to right, we have David Herbstman, David Simons, David Foster, Greg Diocampo, Ben the dog, Sarah Lindsley and Josh Hendricks. Now you'll notice there's a lot of Davids on the After Effects team, so they're Dave H, Dave S, Dave F, etc. And there they are, looking happy with Ben the dog. After Effects was founded by the company COSA, which stands for the Company of Science and Art. And the original After Effects crew drew their code names for products from the menu of a restaurant not far from this office in Apsara. And this is also known as the Plabbed. And you need to ask people in the know why it's known as the Plabbed. So I'll leave that for you to discover yourself. Dave Simon says, "We just visited that restaurant and apparently not much has changed. I just ate some lort, which are tiny egg rolls, and some nim chow, which together cover 3 of the early code names, lort, egg and nim chow." Version 1 was codenamed Egg, and it was released in 1993, and it was bought by Aldus, who eventually merged with Adobe, who own it now today, as we know. It was codenamed Egg, and it had a basic layered compositing with mask, effects, transforms, and keyframes. And it was only available on the Mac. Now you'll notice if you look here that it doesn't actually look that much different to how After Effects looks now. There's still a timeline, but notice the Layers panel is separate from the timeline. But everything else is pretty much the same. There's an Effect Control panel, Project panel, and Comp panel. And then version 1.1 of After Effects added some more effects, and then came version 2, which was known as Teriyaki. It added a time layout window, multi-machine rendering, and frame blending. And then came version 3, Nimchow, which added a render queue, Bezier masking, time remapping, keyframe assistance, velocity graph, motion tracker, motion math. There was loads and loads of new features in version 3. And then came version 3.1, and this is where I started in After Effects. And it added more file formats, multi-processing, advanced keying, and then the Wiggler, Motion Sketch, Smoother, they were all added in 3.1. And this is one of the first movies I ever made in After Effects. And it's actually a little animation of one of the Bee Gees dancing on someone's mouth. Don't ask me why. So a client asked me for it for the website, and I designed it. It's just a little Photoshop file with, I think, the reshape effect, or I think it might have just been the bulge effect, but I used various different copies of the bulge effect to get different movements happening. It was very, very basic animation. And then came After Effects 4, and After Effects 4 added some great new features. It was codenamed Ebir, and it added tabbed windows, movable timeline layout columns, multiple masks per layer. Before that we only had 1 mask per layer. Lots of warping and particle effects, audio effects, transform effects, and adjustment layers. There were also some other improvements. We had RAM previews, and also effects could now extend outside the layer edge, which was really nice. And then 4.1 arrived, and that was known as Batnip. And it had a flowchart view and watched folders and 3D channel effects and all sorts of other good stuff. And then came version 5, and this is where I really started to fall in love with After Effects. Melmit, probably my favourite After Effects, had 3D layers, 3D lights, parenting, vector paints, expressions, all the atomic power plugins like Wave World, Shatter and Vegas, had 16-bit color channel support, Illustrator transparency support, all sorts of effects were added. So it was a really big release, and partly the reason it was my favourite was because I wrote a book about it as well. I wrote my first book, Creative After Effects 5, about version 5. And I wrote that with a lovely guy called Paul Tursley, who you may have heard of, a great guy, and he taught me a lot about expressions and 3D and parenting. So thanks to Paul for all his help over the years. So this is a showreel of mine, of part of my showreel, and this was one of the first serious projects I worked on, which was a film for the Cook Museum in Middlesbrough, where I composited text over footage. And at the time, I just had to use masks to make text appear and disappear over time. So that was one of my first jobs on After Effects 5. And then, of course, came After Effects 6, Food Fight, which added paint, scripting, text animators, OpenGL support, Roto Bezier masks, Keylight, Liquify, tons and tons of good stuff. And then 6.5, Shambon, added Advanced Clone Tool, Presets Gallery, Grain Management, and Final Effects plugins, amongst other things. Colour Finesse was bundled as well. And then 7 came out, Clam Chop was the codename for that. And it had a new unified window and added effects like Time Warp, added the graph editor, which opened up a completely new way of working, and had OpenGL 2 support and 32 bits per channel HDR colour, 32-bit audio, bridge support, dynamic link with Premiere Pro. So a lot of great things added with version 7. And of course, that's when I wrote the next version of my book, Creative After Effects 7, which I really should get round to updating. But for now, you have learned by video. This is a bit of a showreel of some of the work that I've done with After Effects over the years. Mainly older stuff. I've put in here things like animated lens flares and little animated characters that I used to do back in the day. Then there was After Effects CS3. CS3 brought in shape layers, the puppet tool, brainstorm, clip notes, vanishing point. That was a great update. And then CS4, Chinchillada, quick search in the projects and timeline, mini flowchart view, breadcrumbs, live PSD 3D layer import, etc, etc. And then of course there was CS5, and we all know CS5 and 5.5. We had a lot of great things. Escargot was the codename for CS5. And it had the Roto Brush tool, Refine Matte Effect, Mocha, LUT support, AVC Intra support, Red support, and various new plugins. And then came CS6, which is the version that we're at now, a new version of After Effects, and you'll see that the application has come on a long way since the beginning days. It now has persistent disk cache and other caching improvements that make it a lot faster to work in After Effects. There's a 3D camera tracker and loads of new 3D features, including the Ray Trace 3D renderer, beveled and extruded text and shape layers, bendable footage and composition layers, environment maps, new material options, variable width mask feathering, layer bounding box and selection indicator improvements, and vector art footage to shape conversion, as well as things like rolling shutter repair. And you can find out about all these things in this course. So I hope you've enjoyed that little quick tour of After Effects and my upbringing with After Effects. I really do love this application. I used to get bored with things very, very quickly, and then I discovered After Effects, and how many ever years later, what is it, 17 years later, I'm still not bored, and I'm still finding new things to do with such a great application. So thanks a lot to the After Effects team for creating such great software, and also creating such a great partner for me to create this training movie with. Todd Capriva, my partner, has been a really important part of the After Effects team for many years, and I'm very pleased to be working with him on this. So let's dive into the tutorials. Come on, join me and Todd in learning some After Effects.